The Accidental Entrepreneur is brought to you with the help of our sponsor, AWeber, the world's leading small business email marketing and automation service provider. Since 1998, AWeber has helped more than 1 million small businesses and entrepreneurs through its suite of web-based email marketing, automation tools, and education. AWeber, the best option when it comes to marketing your business. The podcast is also brought to you by the Alternative Board. Since 1989, the Alternative Board, or TAB, has been one of the leading peer advisory and business coaching organizations for independent business owners and CEOs across the world. By facilitating peer advisory boards, private one-on-one coaching, and strategic planning services, TAB helps business owners improve their businesses in ways that change their lives. And be sure to connect with our affiliate sponsor, GSM Growth Agency. They're boosting e-commerce businesses to 6 and 7 figures in revenue and cover everything from ads and social media influencers to making your website better. GSM Growth Agency focuses on taking businesses from startup success to bigger success, going above and beyond to make sure growth sticks around. They're all about cool ideas, lasting partnerships, and making your mark in the e-commerce world. And be sure to support the podcast by ordering some logo merchandise from our online store. Listen to all of our sponsors' commercials later in this episode and follow their links in the show notes to learn more about their products and services.
And you know, it's funny how much trauma people bring in. So, you know, we work with people who were in careers for a long time and they left for various reasons. They're afraid to come to us with problems.
They had similar experiences like you did. Stressful work, people yelling at you and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Toxic environments.
Terrible.
Yeah. And so we've had to deal with that a lot. And you know, a couple of weeks ago, we had a situation where a client was being really toxic towards the assistant. I had never met the assistant before. She was, you know, hired and trained by our mentor team. We had never spoken, and I kind of saw what was going on. Her manager brought it to my attention, and I went to the client. I said, "This is not acceptable."
Right.
And then I need to talk to the assistant about it. And I'm very aware of when the boss lady calls you, it's scary. So I send a message. I say, "This is what's going on. This is exactly what I want to talk to you about. You are not in trouble. I am not angry. Can we hop on a call?" And we get on this call and she tells me what's going on. And I was like, "Oh, absolutely not. You do not need to be in this situation. We're taking you out of it. These are the steps that we take. We're removing you from this."
Yeah.
And she was just like, "No one."
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. No one has ever done that for me. She had been in other.
Nobody needs to be treated that way, and you won't put up with it. They think, what, just for money?
Right.
Come on.
Right.
Okay. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. I'm Mitch Beinecker, your host. We got another great guest today. We're going to be talking to Katie Santoro about her virtual assistant business. So stick around for a great show. If you are listening on your favorite podcast directory, please be sure to leave us a 5-star review. If you're watching us on YouTube, be sure to subscribe to the channel, like us, ring some bells and whistles, I don't know, and so we can keep bringing you the kind of guests that we have on today. So let's get on with today's show.
The information provided in these episodes is for entertainment purposes only. It is not a guarantee of success or to be construed as advice of any kind. You should always seek advice from local licensed professionals before making any decisions.
The dictionary defines an entrepreneur as a person who organizes and manages any enterprise, especially a business, usually with considerable initiative and risk. People often start a business without much choice, perhaps due to a job loss or just being dissatisfied at work, and they come up with an idea they just know can be successful. They become entrepreneurs by accident. That is to say, their success or failure happens by accident, not with intention. My name is Mitch Beinecker. I'm a corporate attorney and a business advisor. You're listening to The Accidental Entrepreneur, my podcast about how to achieve success on purpose, not by accident. Join me along with our monthly guests, where we share our knowledge and help you get a hold of your business. And now on to today's episode.
Hi, I'm Katie Santoro with River City Virtual Assistants. We are a U.S.-based virtual assisting agency on a mission to craft a world free of burnout. We do that by providing entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, business owners, and executives with skilled administrative assistance. And on the other side of that, we provide our team members, our employees, with the opportunity to have flexible working arrangements so that they can take care of their families.
So, Katie, we are recording. Okay, so welcome to the show. And why don't we do this? Because we met through Andrea Pass, who's a friend of mine, does a lot of PR. She's a PR publicist now, I guess. And why don't we go back and talk a little bit about you? I know you were in corporate and you have a background, and then we can get into River City. I'd like to talk about not only the difficulties or the things that you found about running your own business and how you deal with those things and advice for starting your own business. And you have a unique kind of business because, VAs are, the whole system's virtual. So you don't have like people sitting in your house, like calling people. So we could talk about that, and then maybe how, VAs can help with productivity and all that type of stuff. Does that make sense? We'll go backwards and then go forward.
Yeah.
All right. Sounds good. Let's do it.
Great.
So tell me your story in terms of, how you got started in corporate, I think it was, right?
Yeah. So, kind of typical story, right? Like I went to college, I did the things I was supposed to do, started a career. I started as a paralegal working in insurance defense, did that for a couple of years, then moved into the insurance side of insurance defense. So worked as a claims examiner. It's a hard world. You're dealing with people who have lost a lot of things, people that they love or houses, right, or, all of that. It's also a very interesting world. You learn so much. So I learned a lot. I loved it, but I burnt out. In I guess about 2017, I was trying to figure out like what else there was in life. I was with my husband on vacation, and I was like, is this all that we've worked so hard to get to this point in our careers, and now we get 2 weeks a year to ourselves, and the rest is just like the grind. Yep. And he said, well, if you could do anything in life, what would you do? And I said, I'd quit my job and open a yoga studio. And he was like, well, how would you do that? I said, I don't know, but let's figure it out. So about a year later, I opened a yoga studio. That was in 2018. And I was still working full time at the insurance company. I continued to do that into 2019, and I hit full burnout.
Because you're burning at both ends, right? So.
Exactly. Yeah. Getting up every morning, going to a job that was very emotionally and spiritually draining, and then coming home and teaching yoga classes, which can also be very energetically draining. You kind of have to be right on, and you're teaching.
Right.
Yeah. And then running a studio. So cleaning bathrooms and mopping floors and, ordering supplies and doing
right. You never run a business before. That was basically kind of retail, kind of not. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I had always waited tables in college, so I didn't even have retail experience, right. And it was just a completely different world.
So what did you like? You're a yoga person, right? You've done yoga all your life. So is that why you wanted to open a yoga studio? So what's your first day going out? You're looking at space, you're writing a business plan, you're calling banks. What are you doing? You're buying yoga mats?
So I wrote a business plan. I had to write a business plan to get a lease. I had to have a self-guarantee on the lease. I was fully self-funded. I had, golden handcuffs from my corporate job. So I've always been a really big saver. Mm-hmm. I used to wake up every morning and on my way to work, calculate what was in my savings account and how long I could live off of it if I left my job,
that's reflective.
It's time
that
to
you
leave.
Shouldn't be there. Right. Exactly.
Yeah. That's a pretty big sign. Yeah. So I was self-funded, but I did a business plan, did some numbers, knew what the budget was. I had to get my yoga teaching certification. Right. I wasn't even a teacher.
You can't just do it because you want.
You can't just do it. Right. Yeah. But that
also bank and get a loan, small business loan, or no? You did it all self-funded.
No.
Okay.
All self-funded. Okay. This business as well is completely bootstrapped. Okay. And I took a class. I took a coaching class. I think it was about a 12-week. I worked with a business coach who I'm still in touch with. She's lovely. But that was another thing. I had opened a yoga studio. I'm taking this 12-week class. I'm working full time. It wasn't, it wasn't burning the candle at both ends. It was just burning the candle.
Mush. Yeah. No, yeah. Look, a lot to you, right? Because you wanted to keep your income going for a little while you did this, but you recognized that, hey, I need to get some training to do this. It's not like I'm just going to go sit on a yoga mat every day. I'm running the business, and there's a lot to do. So that's good. Yeah, a lot more people should do that. Go take a 3-month course, before they get started. I'm sure you learned a lot, right?
Yeah, I did. And, something that you learn in the legal world is processes. There's a process and a procedure for everything. So I relied on that very heavily in the studio. I'm even as a yoga person, I love yoga. I'm very organized. I'm very system oriented. Things have to happen in a specific way. So I was able to use that experience, and I think that helped
Very
me.
much so. Yeah.
But there was a lot to learn. And in early 2019, a friend of mine came to visit. She came from another country. We've known each other our entire lives. She brought her husband and her 2-year-old.
Okay.
And I was still taking this course. I was, doing all of the things, and I didn't get to spend time with her at all. And when she left,
you're still at the insurance company. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And like completely out of PTO because,
right.
That's a trick with PTO. Like I was really excited to go into my career and get PTO until I realized that like when your PTO is out, you can't just like
get more.
Yeah. It wasn't like the restaurant world where you could just take 3 weeks off and nobody cared. You wouldn't make any money, but you could go,
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Different
world. When you're salaried. Yeah.
Yeah. So I realized that
Where is she from? Your friend?
She lives in Israel.
Oh, in Israel. Okay. And how do you know her?
We grew up together. So we grew up on the same street, and I just spoke with her this morning. No, in Northern Virginia. Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
She moved there when we were 12, and we used to write each other letters every week. And
letters.
Facebook.
I don't even know.
Like handwritten. The stamps were at least like $1. Yeah. And I've been over a couple of times to visit her. I love it. She's been, she's obviously comes back. She has family here. She was a flight for a long time. So she was here a lot, which was really great.
Right.
But we've always been best friends. I talked to her this morning. She's, we joke we're soulmates. But she came to visit, and I didn't have any time to spend with her. And that just kind of like, it was sad. I didn't get to spend time with her daughter, whom I love, or her husband, we call each other bestie. We're good friends too.
Right.
And when she left, I said, I have to leave my job. Like I've got to leave the insurance world.
Yeah.
And then I sat down and I made some hard decisions about money and letting some stocks vest and doing the things that I needed to do. And 6 months later, I put my notice in, and then I stayed.
That's right.
Yeah. And then I stayed for another couple months to help them with the transition. And then in September of 2019, I completely left and ran the yoga studio.
Right. But you had been open for business at this point. No? Mm-hmm. You had been.
Yeah. We had been open we opened in May of 2018, and I left the insurance company in September of 2019.
Okay.
So a little over a year.
Yeah. So you had a while.
Yeah. Making a little bit of profit, not enough to pay my mortgage. But with the stock options I was able to cash out and the savings that I had, I knew I would be fine. So I left.
Yeah.
And I started to heal from burnout. And that was a really long process. It took me longer than I thought. I thought within a week, I'd sleep in a couple of days.
Great. No, it's very hard. Yeah.
Very hard. I had a list of things I was going to do. I was going to, build new closeting systems and organize this and do that. And my husband, who wasn't my husband at the time, but is now, he's like, what are you talking about? Like, you need to do literally nothing.
Nothing for like a month.
Nothing. And he actually convinced me to stop setting an alarm. I was setting my alarm for 6:30 every morning. And he was like, what are you doing? Why are you doing it?
Right. Well, you need a partner to support you, because sometimes you can't see the forest through the trees, Yeah.
So true.
Yeah.
And it's funny, I don't even use an alarm anymore. Like I just wake up naturally when I'm ready to get up.
It means you're healthy. That's good. I don't use an alarm either. I told you I have dogs that wake me up at 4:30 in the morning. So
yeah, we got those too. They won't let us sleep all day.
That's for sure. So, but I think that was an interesting comment you made about processes, and you learned that with the yoga studio. I'm sure you're doing that with River City. A lot of business, that's where a lot of businesses run into trouble. You can point to a lot of different things, but as they grow, if they're able to kind of, get past the I sweep the floors and clean the toilets myself type of, the period where they're doing everything, as they grow without having processes in place, without everybody kind of knowing what their job is on the bus, problems happen real fast. And sometimes you don't even know that they're happening, You're like, this isn't working, and you don't have any idea why. And then you find out, well, that's because he or she isn't doing this. Well, why don't they know that? Like, people think like everything's intuitive, and it's not It is to you, and it is to me for my own business, but it's not intuitive to the people that come to work every day. I mean, it's your place. So I think that that was an astute. Maybe it's because the course you took. Maybe it's just because you're an organized person and you realize that that was kind of important. But look, I think a lot of people don't do that. I think a lot of people, right? They just they rent a space, they register for the class, they buy some stuff, so they get certified and they're off and running. And now they're looking for, for people to sign up for their classes and all that kind of stuff. And then as they grow, they hit a brick wall and they can't figure out why.
There's no foundation.
Yeah. And if they did it from the beginning, it would have been a lot easier than building in those processes when it's already going. Yeah.
And it's hard to slow down when you have a lot to do when you own a business, when you first started a business. I mean, I was crying every day because I couldn't figure out how to use my sales platform, to sign people up for classes.
Right?
Yeah. So much to learn. And you don't always stop to document. You don't think to stop and document your process. I have a lot of anxiety. I think that's what fuels my organization. If I have a checklist, I'm not going to be worried about it. I'm going to know, I can put this into autopilot.
Yeah.
So I've always done a checklist. I had checklists for the team at the yoga studio. Every day that you come in, these are the things you need to do. Here's your checklist. Check it off. Sign it. Say that you've done it.
You can't keep that up in your head. People try to do that and make some. I can't do it either. It's the same way. I don't want to wake up in the morning going, "What the hell do I have to do today?" I'm coming in, boom, it's here. I don't worry about it till I get here. But it's definitely for sanity. No question about it. Yeah.
So and same thing now. And as we've grown and I've had to train people to do the things that I do, it has been so important that I have the process documented.
Yeah.
And also that I have the emotional flexibility to understand that my process is not always going to be the right thing.
Yep. Yeah. There's no question about it. There's other ways to do things. You're not doing brain surgery where you're teaching somebody if they screw up, the person dies.
Exactly.
You have to be that attached to the process as long as it's achieving and, keeping everybody on board. But you're right. I mean, I don't know how I don't know how people train, and maybe they're not good at it, whatever. Without a process, how in the hell you can't train somebody? It's just not luck. It's just shot in the dark. It's going to work. They can understand you or not, because you can't go back to anything and say, well, let's go back and say, well, did you do these 3 things? They're like, no, why would I do those 3 things? Well, because it's in the book, not because, but I mentioned that to you when we were walking around the office and I was showing you everything.
Yeah.
That's not how you run a company. And I'm guilty of it too. When I had a firm, I wasn't good at it, doing that stuff. So how long did you have the studio?
No, I closed it in 2020. So in the beginning of March of 2020, I went down to Costa Rica to get my 500-hour certification.
That's before pandemic came, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was in a month-long program in Costa Rica. It was a residential training program.
Okay.
You go and you sing songs and you hold hands and it's all very touchy-feely.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the yoga stuff.
Okay.
And then 2 weeks into the program, the borders closed and they sent us home.
Hey, of course. Yeah. You're like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I went home.
Did you get a refund?
No, I went back. And finished.
Oh, you did? Okay, that's good.
Yeah. They gave us some options and I wanted to finish. So I ended up going back. I think the following year I went back and finished. And yeah, I didn't want a refund. I wanted to do it. I wanted the certification and I wanted to finish that program. It was actually really important for my burnout journey. I used a lot of the energetic practices that we learned to help me heal from burnout. Because for me, it was a very energetic burnout. I know that sounds very woo-woo.
Because you said
Say it again.
You didn't have the studio at that point. You said you shut it down in 2020. So you finished. It was really just for a personal thing.
Yeah. So I shut down the physical studio in 2020. I kept it open online until the end of 2021. Okay. I was able to
the studio. You closed.
Yeah. I was teaching from my office. I was teaching from Zoom.
Got it.
But I still had the space, the rented space. I still had a lease. I had a personal guarantee on the lease, which was terrifying. Right. I was able to negotiate out of it. I made a good negotiation, got out of the lease.
Right.
But I continued teaching until the end of 2020.
Okay.
Yeah. So I kept on teaching a little bit.
Yeah. I think we didn't even have a vaccine at that point. We're still all kind of in lockdown. Yeah,
we didn't know what was happening, which is why I was like, I've got to negotiate out of this lease. I don't want to continue teaching from Zoom. I didn't enjoy it. We had lost a lot of clients. I struggled a lot with walking away from the clients that we still did have, because there was kind of that feeling that I needed to, be with them and help them through it.
Yeah.
But when we got to the point where we knew that we weren't going back to in-person anytime soon, and everybody really settled into kind of the rhythm of not being in person, it just got to a point where I knew that I needed to step away and take care of myself.
Got it. Okay.
So this came about, River City Virtual Assistants came about as just freelancing. Like, I had a rent on the building to pay, and I went to my husband. I said, I got to go back to work. And he was like, no, you can't. Like, you were awful. And he said, and he was right. He said,
the insurance industry?
Yeah, I was going to go back.
Yeah, it would have been virtual because they weren't going to the office anyway, right? You would have been home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, some of them were. I think the company I was at they only closed for like a couple weeks, and then they went back. And
you're kidding.
It was a whole thing. But I was really happy I wasn't there at the time.
Yeah, really. Wow.
So I started looking, and my husband didn't want me to go back, and so I was like, let me freelance. Like, I can freelance as an assistant. I have assistant experience. I have admin experience. I have marketing experience from running the yoga studio. And then I have project management experience from, running cases as a claims examiner. So I kind of put the word out there. I found my first client was a friend of mine's husband who owns an IT company out in California. Okay. He's still a client.
Okay.
I started getting more clients on. We used some like freelance sites, and I got busier than I could handle. I used to sit down to dinner every night and be like, oh, I got a new client today. And my husband was like, what are you doing? Like,
managing all these people.
Yeah. And, processes.
You were the only one, right?
I was the only one.
So you were a personal assistant to all these different people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So, I was working as like an executive assistant for one person, and then like marketing support for another person, and then like personal assisting for another person, and just like learning all of the things. I love to learn things, learning different programs, learning how to,
I like to do that. So they're like, why do you do that? You shouldn't do it yourself. I go, I want to learn. I want to know how to podcast and how to do the editing and stuff. Yeah, but that's not a good use of your time. Well, maybe it isn't, but I want to know, like, if I'm going to tell somebody what to do, I want to know what the options are, right? Not that somebody just said, this is how we're going to do it, right?
Yeah.
Curiosity.
You do get to a point where you realize, like, I can't learn it all, right?
Yeah, of course, or it's just too much. You only so many hours in the day, and you do over time get I don't know if it's a reward, but certainly the choice, right? Of, taking a breath every once in a while and say, it's okay. We'll let him or her do that. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Take me alone.
Delegation.
Yeah. Delegation. Right. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. It was a good time for a VA company, right? Because we're all in lockdown. Now we're all online. Like, it wasn't, 3 years before that, it was kind of foreign to a lot of people. Like, VAs were, Ruby receptionist was probably like the only company that was out there answering your phones. Like, that's really all you thought of, right? You didn't really think of people working from home. They didn't even have the capacity to do it. Now everyone had Zoom and, microphones and computers, and it was all,
Yeah. And there were VA agencies, and there still are, that are in like the Philippines or Indonesia.
Yeah.
And I was actually talking to somebody last night about it, and he had been working with a virtual assisting agency prior to the pandemic. And he said when the pandemic began, it was a mess, because although they're virtual to us, they were in an office.
Yeah.
And they went on full lockdown as well, sent everybody home.
Oh, right. Yeah. They couldn't do virtual.
Exactly.
Right.
So there became a problem of having like the reliability and consistency. And all of my new clients that I was getting, they kept on saying like, oh, I had this assistant and she ghosted me and I haven't heard from her.
Yeah.
And like, serious problem when you're trying to run a business, So that was my first value, my first two values, being reliable and being consistent. And then realizing that there was a really big space for, just kind of being self-reliant, learning how to teach myself things, because people who need an assistant don't necessarily know, they don't know how to be an assistant. They just know they need someone to help them.
Yeah.
And so I was able to kind of be like, okay, well, how about we try it this way? Let me see if I can learn how to do this thing and help in that way. I'm a natural problem solver. It is my superpower. So just, problem solving and helping people. And then as I was doing this, and the busier I got, new client every day, driving my husband crazy. He thought I was going to go right back into burnout. I was watching my friends leave the workforce. So at the time, I was in my late 30s, and everybody had babies during the pandemic. And then there was no childcare. So I just started recruiting friends that, had little ones at home, or, their husbands were home and were able to help during the afternoons, and they just wanted to work. They wanted to do something outside of taking care of their families.
Right.
And that's how we grew. We've grown out of my network of friends. I have a COO, Megan. She came to work with me she began working with me in 2022.
Okay.
And now we're partners.
Now, are most of your people nearby, your assistants, or are they're not around the world or around the country?
Nope. We're all US based. So our mission started to keep women in the workforce.
Okay.
And now it is keeping parents and caretakers in the workforce, which is mostly women.
Okay.
We have a lot of people on our team that are in the sandwich generation. So taking care of parents, taking care of children.
Yep. I got it. Yep. We're all there.
Yeah. But educated, they want to work. They want to be in the workforce. They just really need the ability to kind of set their hours and not work full time and not do the full grind. So we give them you want to work while the kids are in daycare in the morning and you do a half day program. Great. Like those are the hours. Or maybe you want to work in the evenings when your husband is home and you have some, coverage with the kids. Great. You can work those hours.
Right.
So we give them that type of flexibility. We don't give them the flexibility of like, you can work when you want to, 2 hours here and then like maybe 4 hours next week. Like there's set hours, but they are able to fit it into their schedule.
Yeah. Well, unless they're answering phones, I guess the rest of it is a little bit more flexible, right?
Yeah. So we don't answer phones.
Well, that solves that problem.
That solves that problem.
I don't think you need that stuff anymore. Somebody said that, well, don't you need somebody to answer your phones? I'm like, why? People call me, I deal with it, or I get back to them and they leave me a message, or it's just not necessary to pay somebody to. It was when we didn't have cell phones and voice messages, but I don't think people are insulted. Like I know law firms are like, whoa, no, you have to have a live person answer the phone. I'm like, why is that? Like, what? We think people think you're like they're insulted that a machine. All the biggest corporations use automated voice attendants.
Yeah,
to tell you something,
Yeah, and I think law firms they don't like to make a lot of change.
Yeah,
there's a little bit of resistance there.
Yeah.
It's funny when I first started talking about freelancing, I was like, I'll just freelance as like a paralegal. I can do a little bit of freelance like that. I haven't done any of that. I've done zero of that.
Right.
So I moved completely away from that world, which is fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, we don't answer phones. We really strongly believe in boundaries because our mission has really evolved to become crafting a world free of burnout. So that's for our team members as well. We want them, you can have it all, but you can't do it all, So how do we create boundaries? And we do that by saying, your assistant is not available to you 8 hours a day unless you want to pay them for all of those 8 hours. But
obviously, right. Yeah, you can't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You get a block of time every day. They're going to be dedicated to that time. They're going to be dedicated to you during that time, but we all need to respect each other's boundaries. And I think that the pandemic allowed even more of that because people were working from home and they started to see how that creep could happen into their personal lives.
Yeah.
So people are pretty open to the idea of boundaries.
No, no question about it. We don't really have work-life balance anymore. Now we just have like life. And we're working in it at the same time. Like you mentioned, with people's dog. I do this all the time during podcasts. The kid walks in, the dogs, whatever happens. It's just, it's about, we couldn't get the things to start, at the beginning. So I'll deal with that after. It's just life, it's the way things are.
It's just life.
People are okay with that,
Yeah. It's funny. My business partner, Megan, also was a paralegal, same insurance defense. And something that I always tell her is just because things have always been done a specific way doesn't mean that we need to continue doing them that way.
Yeah, that is the best statement I've ever heard anybody say.
It has been very important how we build our business. And something that she always tells me is nobody is getting sued for malpractice. And there's not going to be any fees if we miss this deadline. Like you're going to be fine. So we both have like this little bit of trauma.
Yeah, no, well, that's because you want to be, you always want to be right. You always want to do it right. You always want to give the best value to the customer, but their perception of it and your perception of it is different because you have a lot higher standards and you're hard on yourself and, things like that. Like, I can practice law and I can submit something to the court. I used to have attorneys that used to work with me. It doesn't have to be perfect. Like you're going to get the same result. The judge isn't going to go, wow, that is the nicest brief I've ever seen. I'm definitely ruling in their favor. Like it doesn't work that way. If you're not the best writer, it's not written perfectly, but you make the argument, you present the things and you submit all the elements. They're going to go, it's okay. Like you're going to get the same result for the client,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But in that field, I feel like there's not a lot of space for error. And,
in law?
Megan and I kind of coming up in like the paralegal industry, we were always terrified of making an error. My first boss used to scream at me until I cried. And that was a very long time ago. And I'm sure he's
not because there's no reason for that.
Right. No reason. He was just always stressed out.
Yeah, right. Exactly. It's a reflection of him being stressed out. And like you said, it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't work that way. It's not, people are going to dump the table. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's interesting. We're similar. So.
Yeah, we've given up a lot of our perfectionism just to get things done, and we've crafted new ways to do things. We've looked at things and said, like, does this fit our lifestyles? Does it fit what we want for our lifestyles? And a lot of time, if it doesn't, we get rid of it. We're not the type of business owners that work 10-hour days. I mean, do I some days? Yeah, sure.
Well, because you have right. But you don't want to be everything to everyone. Like that's not productive. It's not good. It's not healthy. Doesn't really build a business.
Mm-hmm.
The ironic thing about it is the more you niche down, the more specific you are with what you do and who you work with and the industries you choose to work with. Actually, the more productive and the more profitable usually you are. Yeah. It's like the secret of business that people don't realize till the end, not at the beginning. Yeah. The ones that get it really are successful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to work smarter, and if you work those really, really long hours, you're not going to bring your best self to anything that you're doing.
Right.
And it's going to hurt business. If you're showing up tired and making mistakes or you can't be kind to people because you're exhausted and burnt out, you're not going to get anywhere.
Right. Of course not. Then you're not helpful to them or anything. All right. Well, this is normally the portion of the show where I take a little commercial break.
Sure.
Take a breather. Let's see if it plays. If it doesn't, I'll have to clip it in afterward. And we'll get back. But let me see if this goes into playing.
Here's a word from our sponsors.
Looking to market and grow your business? Or perhaps you're just getting started and want to hit the ground running? AWeber is the best choice for online email marketing and automation of your business. From maintaining a subscriber list to drip campaigns and landing pages, AWeber gives you tools and integrations that make marketing easy and fun. As our partner and sponsor, we use all their tools to promote the podcast and market our law firm. AWeber, the best alternative for online marketing. For over 30 years, the Alternative Board, or TAB, has built a thriving community of forward-thinking CEOs and business owners who want to radically improve their companies. Through unique combinations of one-on-one business coaching, participation in monthly TAB board meetings with other non-competing owners, a suite of strategic tools and customized strategic planning workshops, TAB membership can deliver greater strength to your business and a better work-life balance for you and your family. All packaged in a streamlined and affordable service that the people at TAB invite you to try risk-free. Are you struggling with managing advertising due to a lack of time or expertise? Perhaps you're facing challenges in scaling ads for your store. Are you feeling lost when strategies have no success? GSM Growth Agency is your reliable partner in overcoming these business challenges. Feel the impact of collaborating with a team dedicated not only to short-term goals, but also to building long-term partnerships and achieving sustained success. Embark on an exciting journey to redefine the possibilities of e-commerce and create a legacy of unparalleled excellence. Take decisive action now. Follow their link in the show notes to receive a complimentary audit of your Shopify store conducted by a GSM expert. Propel your e-commerce game to new heights with GSM Growth Agency.
Follow the link in the show notes to learn more about all of our sponsors. And now back to our show.
Why don't we do this then? Why don't we talk about, I mean, you've shared some of it, right? But in terms of, running the business and as an entrepreneur, what have you found to be, difficult being an entrepreneur? And what have you found to be like, things you're kind of doing differently now or would do differently in terms of running a business? Because you've done one was brick and mortar that was kind of forced to be virtual, but really brick and mortar. And then this one is basically virtual. I don't think, do you see people be on Zoom? Not too often, right?
Not too often, no.
Yeah. Right. So, unless they come to your bedroom and they sit with you on your bed and talk, right? So
Yeah.
you don't even have an office, right? You don't need one. Right.
No, well,
in your home.
I have an office space. That's super important. And that's one of the things we ask people when we interview them, like, is, do you have a quiet space in your house that can be your space?
Yeah. I don't want to deal with an assistant who's got the kids running around the background and pots banging around. It's just not, maybe some people could do that, but I don't want to do that. You want their attention.
Yeah.
So it's a good question.
Exactly. So I have an office here. You can see it behind me. It's decorated to be my office. It's actually an old dining room. But we took the chandelier out because I was hitting my head on it walking through every day. So I don't leave the house very often. Yesterday, I went and did some networking things, and I co-worked from my husband's office in the city. And I was just mad all day because I had to wear shoes. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but
I like days when I can wear jeans and I go to the office because I just don't like doing it at home. My wife uses the office there, but it's a co-working space. Outside this door is, other people doing stuff.
Yeah. I don't leave very often. My husband, this month, I'm not allowed to buy anything on Amazon, so that I do leave the house to go shopping, which has been interesting for me. But we are.
Yeah.
Say it again. Sorry.
Don't need to leave your house anymore. Literally, food, clothing, toiletries, everything can be delivered. It's terrible.
Yeah. But networking is wide open again.
Yeah.
So that's been good. I've been going out and meeting people and talking to people. Which is really, it's going to open up new opportunities, and it's great.
Yeah. So what have been the challenges of that versus a in-person, brick and mortar business? Some of it is you got to get yourself to do it, right? Nobody's making you do it. But in terms of managing people, you find it easier, harder, that kind of stuff.
So this is so managing in the yoga studio was very different. Everybody was contracted, and I was very aware of the fact that I couldn't ask them to do specific things. Like, they were contracted, they came in, they taught their classes, they left. We had a couple of rules, we had like a, no drugs and alcohol policy, like those type. Yeah.
Yeah. But they weren't employees.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. Our rules were more like safety rules: lock the door, don't show up high, those types of things, which in that industry is a conversation I had to have more than once.
I think that would be intuitive, but no.
Not to everybody. And so in this business, the challenge has been not just learning how to lead people virtually, but learning how to lead people at all. I had never really done it before. I've trained other people in other roles. There's always an element to every job of like training the incoming person and teaching them how to do things. And I was, comfortable with that, but really like empowering my team to do the things that they need to do. And to do them their own way. Like, this is the way I do it, right? And this has worked really well for me, but how do you see a way to do this? Maybe you can come up with a more efficient process. Maybe you can solve this in a different way. So allowing them to do that. That's been a challenge for me. A lot of that is like letting go of some of my own perfectionism.
Yeah. Right. You need to control things. It's anxious, right? It makes you anxious when you're like, okay, you do this. And then you're like, well, maybe they won't do it well, or maybe they won't do this. Or Yeah. Anxiety.
You have to understand when you delegate that, like, you're going to delegate something to someone and they're not going to do it the same way that you would do it.
No way. Ever.
But the difference is they're doing it and you're not doing it. And that's really where the important part is there. It's something you don't have to do.
Yeah.
So
it's like
giving up control
the world and let's see what happens. Let's let them do it. Not going to hurt anybody.
And it's funny how much, like, trauma people bring in. So, we work with people who were in careers for a long time and they left for various reasons. They're afraid to come to us with problems.
They had similar experiences like you did. Stressful work, people yelling at you and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Toxic environments.
Terrible.
Yeah. And so we've had to deal with that a lot. And a couple of weeks ago, we had a situation where a client was being really toxic towards the assistant. I had never met the assistant before. She was, hired and trained by our mentor team. We had never spoken, and I kind of saw what was going on. Her manager brought it to my attention, and I went to the client. I said, "This is not acceptable."
Right.
And then I need to talk to the assistant about it. And I'm very aware of like when the boss lady calls you, like it's scary. So I send a message. I say, "This is what's going on. This is exactly what I want to talk to you about. You are not in trouble. I am not angry. Can we hop on a call?" And we get on this call and she tells me what's going on. And I was like, "Oh, absolutely not. Like you do not need to be in this situation. We're taking you out of it. These are the steps that we take. We're removing you from this."
Yeah.
And she was just like, no one.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. No one has ever done that for me. Like she had been in other.
Nobody needs to be treated that way and you won't put up with it. They think what, just for money?
Right.
Come on.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I always say that, like we didn't leave our careers and our 401ks and our, nice health insurance plans and all of those things we had just so we can be abused by someone who's paying us to work part-time. Yeah.
Right.
So
too cheap to hire somebody full-time that he can abuse himself in his office and he wants to use a service and whatever and hide behind whatever he's hiding behind. So yeah.
We just don't have space for that.
Sometimes I feel good to fire a client here and there. I do it.
It's very empowering. It's very empowering, especially
they don't just choose you, you choose them. It's a street. Yeah.
People ask like, who is your ideal client? And it's not an industry. I'm going to sound really young here. Right. It's a vibe. Yeah. It's a vibe.
Yeah.
Like you have to understand that.
What's your ideal client? Who do you work with? Well, first of all, I want them to be nice and I want them to be, understanding, and then make sure that they like me. And if we got that, then we can do the other things. Well, is it the industry is the right work? Can I do that for you? Can it be a resource for whatever? Right? Because you don't want to work with people you don't like or that are assholes. Or that's what's great about having your own business.
I know that's that's why we do this. We get to work with people we want to work with and talk to people we want to talk to, and it's very empowering. And then to be able to share that with the team and let them, if they're not enjoying the relationship between them and a client, like, let me know. We will find you another one.
Right.
We want everyone to be comfortable coming to work.
Yeah, that's the last thing you did. It was to hire people to make them more uncomfortable than they were at their corporate job. Like that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So let's talk about this because you got a lot of people that listen are entrepreneurs and small business owners. And I think a lot of them do hold on to things for too long. So how do you start to work with a VA? Let's say you're an entrepreneur like me, right? And I don't want another employee in my lifetime. Like I've had enough. I've done the thing where revenue goes up and income goes down, and I just don't want to do it. I'm 57 years old, but I do need. We can talk about some of this off mic, but I do need like marketing support. I need certain kinds of support. There's certain things that I do that maybe I shouldn't do, but I don't mind doing, and I don't want somebody to be sitting here like at the end of my desk, with a clipboard saying, "Oh, what can I do now?" I don't want that. So how does one start to kind of evaluate what they need? And then, whether there's a lot of agencies out there, right? So how the hell do I pick and evaluate who can help me the best? Is that a fair question or?
Yeah, it is. I mean, there's a lot of different types of agencies. So you definitely want to find one that fits for your needs and your, I guess, comfort level when it comes to managing people.
Okay.
So for me, when I hired my first assistant in this business, which was last year, I sat down, I did a very simple time tracking exercise. We're not tracking down to the 10-minute intervals, but I looked at my seat and my role and the things that I'm supposed to be doing as the founder and CEO. And
so basically, you were running the company, a virtual assistant, but you didn't have your own assistant?
Right.
Right.
The coddler's kids have no shoes. Yeah. It was one of those situations. Okay. And I was getting dangerous back to burnout central, like was starting to happen. So So I started every day. I would just, I work in time blocks. It's just something that works really well for me. I'm a monotasker. So I would say, look, I spent, 2 hours today on client support and emails. I spent 2 hours today on this task. And then at the end of the day, I could see, where I was spending the most of my time, where I was really spinning my wheels, what wasn't moving the business forward, where I was wasting my time.
Yeah.
But most importantly for me is I saw the things that I wasn't getting to. And it was a regular basis. And it was those things that were sitting in my brain. Like I knew that I needed to be more active on LinkedIn. I needed to start a newsletter. We had an email list that we were doing.
Right.
I wanted to start doing, we do webinars for free to teach people things like how to delegate.
Right. It's all business development, really.
Yeah. I wanted to do all of those things and I wasn't getting to it. So that's where I hired an assistant, and we hired someone from the team internally that I knew had the skills. And, I said, this is going to be a little bit different than anything you've done because you're going to have to work with me and I can be all over the place and you're going to have to tell the CEO to pull it together.
Right.
Yeah. So she's great. She works with me she's just part-time with me. She's 5 hours with me and then she has other clients. And we've worked out the things that I need her to do. But it was really sitting down and looking at where am I spending my time? Where would my time be better spent? And then what can I give to somebody else comfortably?
Right.
There's some things I would never give to somebody else that I just I like doing. I'm going to do it.
Yeah. I can't add somebody to draft a contract. That's what they pay me for. Got 30 years experience and I can't. Yeah.
Yeah. But, exactly.
Definitely.
So that's kind of where I started in figuring out what I needed help with. I was lucky because I had a team of virtual assistants that I knew I could rely on.
Of course.
They're trained. I've trained them. I
interview other agencies.
Yeah. I really got to pick the best. But when you interview agencies, you want to know things like where are people coming from, right? Is it, and that's a call for you. At River City Virtual Assistants, we were very focused on US based assistants for different reasons. One of which we knew that we had intelligent women in the US that wanted to work that would be great at this job. So you want to know where they are, their time difference. There can be cultural differences when you work with other companies as well, business cultural differences.
Right.
So you want to keep that in mind. And then what is their support level? And this has been something that we do that I think brings so much value to our clients is we support our assistants, we train them, we mentor them, and then we allow them to have this collective learning experience on the background where if you ask them to do something and they don't know how to do it, they've got a team that they can go to and get that support.
Right.
So you want to know, and if you're, just hiring someone who, maybe you're hiring the neighbor down the street.
Yeah.
She wants to work a little bit. Find out what resources she has. How does she problem solve things?
Right.
A great question I like to ask is, tell me something that you taught yourself recently and how did you teach it to yourself?
That's a good question. I would interview people and be like, oh, Katie's very nice. Yeah, I could see her working here.
This is an important thing too, though, Mitch.
Yeah.
Like we said, it's a vibe.
I need to know a little bit about, right. If you get a bad vibe, I agree with you. Then you're like, no thanks. But you can get a good vibe and then not ask the right questions or figure out if they have the skill set or the temperament or the patience or whatever, or organizational skills. That's all important. Now I go to you, you've kind of vetted the people. You figure out what I need, right? And I'm curious as to whether people come to you and really have an idea what they're looking for. They have no clue. And then you can walk them through a process to say, all right, let's figure out what you need. I've had people plug in. You don't have to worry about that part of it. That's really that's really your value proposition to me, someone like me.
Yeah, we do have people that come to us and say, this is what I need. I have the process written out. I need someone to help me run the process. We have those clients. Those are great. Lovely. Cool. We are here to support you in any other way. But we do have a lot of people that come to us and say, I just need help. And I don't know how a virtual assistant can help me. I don't know where I need help. I don't even know how to get them an email address in my domain so they can help me. So that's when we really lean into the problem solving. As we go through the discovery process, we find out why they're running their business, what they need. And that's usually a conversation of them just being like, this is what I'm doing. And we can identify, cool, you need help in these areas. And then we figure out how they do it.
Right.
And that is, if they don't know how it needs to be done, we sit down and we write a plan and we create a user manual for the assistant to use as they work with the client. So it's we start with a why.
Right.
It's a process. Everything's a process. There's a template for that.
No, absolutely. Look, I had a guy on my show, a couple of guys, they're like process scientists. They work with small to medium-sized businesses, helping them build processes because that's the problem.
There's like an engineering degree on processes.
There is. I think one of them did have an engineering degree, I think.
Yeah. So, we sit down and we say, this is how we do it. Like, they might say like, I'm really struggling with, I need to apply for grants and I don't even know how to go about doing that. We say, cool, this is a process you can use. We will teach the assistant this process and we will have them support you as you walk through the process. So it's just, we help them figure out what they need.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I would.
Some people know, some people don't.
Yeah, right. But I would think not every agency does that, right? I mean,
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Something that also sets us apart is that we employ our team members. So they are employed by us, which means we're able to train them. We're able to offer them benefits, which keeps them with us longer. And we fully manage them. Not that we ever have to discipline anyone. Everyone here is all adults. But, if they go missing for a day and you haven't heard anything, I'm always available. There's a success manager that's assigned. They're always available. And that success manager also spends the first 3 months working closely with the client because there's a 3-month learning curve for the client to learn how to work with an assistant.
I like success manager. I like that's a good.
Every process that we've built out of what are we hearing our clients say has not worked for them with other agencies.
Okay.
Because just because other agencies do it one way does not mean we need to do it that way.
Right. Usually it's the other way around, right? If everybody's doing it that way, you might want to think of doing it a different way if you're going to be more successful.
You know what? One of my favorite things to do is when I can't sleep in the middle of the night is, this is a little crazy, but reading reviews on other agencies. And I narrow down. Say it again. Sorry.
In the middle of the night?
Sure. Yeah. You can't sleep. What else you can do?
Oh my God. My wife does that. I roll over. She's on TikTok or looking up something. I'm like this. And you can see the little light from the camera right on the phone with the little blanket over it. Cause you don't want to wake up your husband. He probably thinks you're crazy.
I do the same thing.
My phone in the kitchen. I do not do that. Yeah.
That's brave.
So, yeah.
But I'd like to go to my competitors and their review sites and narrow down to the 1 and 2 star reviews and read what people are angry about. And I know that sounds silly, but it gives me a really good insight to the struggles that our potential clients are having with agencies that are similar to ours. And that lets me problem solve around those issues. And how do we make sure that isn't an issue with us? Maybe we can do something different.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can't. Sometimes people just want to complain. They're not our vibe.
They're just not even. I have, if you look at my reviews, I think I got to go all the way back. I have some bad reviews at the beginning. They're not even real. Like I couldn't even find who this person was. We didn't do business. There was one from a guy who we did some collection activity for a client against him. And then he went and posted a bad review. I mean, what, there's no like guardrails there, and you just got to bury them with good reviews. But yeah, I always wondered when I read the bad reviews, are these real? Are these not? Are they, how serious is this? I don't know.
You can get a feel for the people that are just posting to post or just complaining to complain. But sometimes you can find some really good information of like, this agency is doing something, they're missing the mark. And how do we hit that mark?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So how many VAs do you have now? Or how many, let's say staff people do you have?
So we have 18 VAs.
Okay.
We have myself, my COO, Megan, and then we just hired a partnership development specialist, so helping me with business development. And we have a lead mentor. So she does the mentor and the client success. Our COO does that as well. And then I have my marketing specialist. So we've got a leadership team of 5 and then 18 virtual assistants.
And how did you? Most curious as to what systems people use and how because it seemed like you're very a system oriented person and you're going to use a process. So what do you do from a strategic to do strategic development? It sounds to me like, you have these different titles, you have a certain structure of the company. How did you get there? I mean, do you use, what's one I was just talking about yesterday, EOS Traction?
Yep. We use EOS. Yep. Mm-hmm. Okay. We use So, you can buy a book on how to do this. Everybody has a system to do this.
No question about it.
Yeah. And I love reading. I love buying business books and reading the first half of them and then being like, next one.
Next one. Right. And then you find one that's
Yeah.
a gem. I do the same thing.
Yeah. And Traction for me, like I started reading it and I was like, this is what we're going to do. I've heard the system works. We don't have the funds to get an implementer, but we love systems. We have the know-how. We can at least use this system and put it into our own business. And we started that. Towards the end of last year and have fully implemented it this year. And it's been great. And, and because we're very clear on like what people's seats are, like I was talking to my COO the other day and she was like, oh, well, I could do this. And I was like, you could, but it's not in your seat and you don't need to. Like your time is here.
In your lane.
So exactly. It allows us all to stay in our lane and she can do the same to me. I'll be like, oh, well, let me help with such and such. And she's like, no, that's not your job.
Right.
Which is, when you're the CEO, you want to do it all and you can't.
It's a little relief, right? It makes you feel better when somebody's, when your employees know what they're, because that's really what leads you astray. Like people not knowing that that's what's good about Traction. It like keeps the vision and, keeps
it
you.
Does.
So how did you find that book? Was it recommended by somebody or?
I think one of our many, many years ago, one of my clients, he's still with us. He now has 2 of our assistants that work with him. He had requested that his incoming assistant read it to understand the system.
He used this.
And then, and then someone posted about it on LinkedIn and I went back to the assistant. I said, hey, you read this, right? And she was like, yeah. I said, do you think there's anything in it for me? And she was like, yeah, I thought it was really interesting. Give it a read. So I bought it and I read it and I was like, yeah, we can do this. This is doable. And then we use Asana, which is an online project management software. We use that for all of our documentation. So we have our meeting, we set our goals for the month. We document in there, we communicate with each other in there. We, exchange documents and do all the things that we need to do. So that gives us a really good blueprint. I've got my list, my top 3 that I need to do every day. But then when I'm done with my top 3, I can go into that and see what my priorities are and where I can start to figure out what else I need to do.
Got it. Well, if you ever need a good implementer, I have a good friend who's a good implementer, but Traction is a great book. It's funny. I was in doesn't even exist anymore. It was like a local networking group. Maybe it was a JBN or something like that. And I didn't really know anybody. I was just a guest or went there first time. So they're going in the room, people are talking and, a couple of people mentioned certain books. I'm writing things down. So I come back, let's say a month later, and I said, I just want to thank, Katie. I want to thank this other person because those are really great books. And they looked at me like, what are you talking about? And I said, what do you mean? You recommend? Oh, I don't even remember that. Like nobody read the book in the group. Like they totally missed. And they were really good. Like I forget which books they were, but they were something really like I really enjoyed and I thought was valuable to my business and all that type of stuff. But I think that, whenever I hear a podcast or I watch it and somebody mentions something, I go and I look it up. I look at the website, I read the book, I check it out and see. And you're right. If you get to halfway through, you're like, I've done this already. You can toss it aside. But there are gems floating out there that people just missed. It just goes by the conveyor belt.
So there's an app and it's called Headway. And I got it this year. Yeah. It is, you pay for the year. It's like $60 for the year, but it is basically like the Cliff Note version of all of these business and self-help books.
Oh, really?
You can read it or you can listen to it. Okay. It's usually like a 15 to 30 minute read or listen. I have sauna and I love to sit in my sauna. So when I get my sauna, I'll listen to one of those and you can determine like whether or not the gems in this book are really going to be helpful and whether or not you need to invest the time reading the book. So,
all right, I wrote that down. Headway is an app or is a website?
It's an app. It's an app on your phone.
All right. I love that stuff. I like to listen to, I write a lot. I'm always doing contracts. I'm always reading stuff. So I tend to books I like to digest, auditorily, if that's the right word.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It's just a great way to kind of preview it and see if it's something that you're going to want to invest your time in.
It's basically an efficient way to use your time because you don't have to read 300 pages and then say, what the heck? This was,
like the 5 a.m. club. I listened to that one the other day and I was like, this sounds like a great idea, but I'm not a morning person and this just is not for me. Not for me.
4-hour work week,
Yeah.
Yeah. They always say,
that's in there.
What do they say? Wake up at 4 a.m. Like it's a weird time. Like nothing good happens in the middle of the night, I always feel. Kids are out.
If I woke up at 4 a.m., I would be too tired to do anything during the day.
I know people that do it, but I need more sleep than that. I can't. Yeah, I can't function. Well, it sounds to me like, Katie, you have a lot of the, habits and qualities, and maybe some of it comes natural to you. Maybe you work at or whatever to, be successful. Because look, I've interviewed over 300 people. I've been doing this for 5 years now. And there are consistent patterns with success and consistent patterns with, let's call it struggle. We won't call it failure, and it's usually the things that you do that other people can do, but they're not willing to do, or they're not, you know what I'm saying? It's not rocket science. It's science. The things that you do and I do, the books are out there. Like you said, you can read it. It's all there to digest, but a lot of people don't. They're just too busy putting out fires. They don't take a step back. But no, I appreciate coming on and sharing your story. And, I hope more people learn to step back a little bit and they can work on their business and get some help working in the business.
Yeah. And there's
a better place.
Yeah. And, one of the things that I like to remind people when it comes to delegation or hiring an assistant, like you are also helping give someone else experience, education as they learn how to do what you need them to do. And you're contributing to the economy. You're helping a family, employ somebody in a way that's really helpful for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm going to thank Andrea. I thank you for coming on. And let's definitely stay in touch because I think it's great what you're doing.
Awesome. Thanks, Mitch. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Accidental Entrepreneur. Opening and closing music written and performed by Howie Moskovich and made to order music. For information about Howie and his music services, please follow the link in our show notes. If you like the podcast, please tell others about us. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, on Amazon Music, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and most of the other podcast directories. If you like what you hear, please leave us a 5-star review and feel free to share our episodes on social media. If you have any questions or comments, ideas for the show, or you'd even like to appear as a guest, reach out to us by email at info@beinhackerlaw.com.
The Accidental Entrepreneur is hosted by Mitch Beinhacker and produced by Beinhacker Law. If you'd like to learn more about our business and legal services, you can find us on social media or visit our website at beinhackerlaw.com. Thanks for listening, and be sure to subscribe to our feed to be notified of all future episodes.